Welcome to tonight's Expert Talk, Personal Marketing Strategies. Last quarter, we did personal branding with a local coach, which was such a success. And this quarter, it just makes sense to continue the overall topic of branding and marketing by inviting two excellent freelancers in marketing. Can you guys just say hi before I proceed to the next slide? Here is Kata and Neal.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks. So, before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Avery Ocumen, and you can call me Av. I'm the ambassador of Upwork here in Manila. So there are other ambassadors in Europe and the US. And today I'm thrilled that we have our ambassadors from the US and Romania as panelists for today's event. So as ambassadors, our team, Kata, Neal, me, and the rest of the ambassadors, we support talent like you and me on Upwork in starting and growing your independent businesses by hosting these virtual and local events to provide you a place to meet and exchange ideas with like-minded people and hopefully to inspire you to take the next step in your career. I also dabble in the Upwork community, so I'm a community moderator. So if you want to interact with Upwork clients and Upwork talent like you can visit the Upwork community at community.upwork.com, ask questions, get tips, and talk about freelancing in general. So yes, welcome to today's Expert Talk. So for today's event, our agenda is I'll have a few product updates for you. These were the releases in the past 2 or 3 months. Maybe you're not yet aware of these releases. I just want to make sure that you're making use of all these new releases that we have in the website. I also have a few reminders, and then we'll proceed with the panel discussion with Neal and Kata, where they will be sharing important marketing principles and reveal to us how personal marketing strategy can help us freelancers stand out on the work marketplace. And then if we have time, we'll do a Q&A. Hopefully we have time. So while I do the product updates, I want you guys to please visit slido.com and then punch in hashtag 356006, or at least just try to scan the barcode there. You'll see a poll. We have a poll and we'll use that later during our discussion. I think the question is, in one word, what comes to your mind when we say personal marketing strategy? So just share with us your idea of what personal marketing strategy is for you. So let's proceed with the product updates. So we did release a meeting scheduler. We heard the Upwork community loud and clear. And now you can you have more ways to streamline interviews and work on meetings on Upwork. So this meeting scheduling tool has been released recently, and it gives you the option to sync it with your Google and Microsoft Calendar to help you do just that, to schedule your meetings. So right now, it's not yet available in Apple iCal, and I think hopefully we'll be able to support it soon. So in the meeting scheduler, the other room participants can book and reschedule or cancel a meeting with you in just a few clicks. So you will see the schedule a meeting link in your one-on-one rooms with your client. And then you will see there's schedule a meeting, and then there's like a sticker there that says new. And then from there, you can set a meeting schedule with your clients. So the next update is the availability badge. So the availability badge was released to help you take more control over your services with the in the marketplace. So right now, it has been released to only a few freelancers. This is an option to help you signal to clients that you are ready for new work right now. So you can turn on the availability badge. You can turn it on and off as needed so that you can signal to clients when you're ready to take on new clients and when you're not available. So to add the blue availability badge on your account, you will need to use your connects. So the goal of charging connects is to ensure that the badge is used only when you are truly open to taking on new projects and clients. So this way, both talent and clients are able to take more control over their workflows. We also, I think it was just last week when we released the Boost Your Proposals option. So this is also a new test. We're trying to test it in a few jobs. So you'll see it in some jobs, and then it's also not available in all jobs yet. So we are testing a new way to help you make your proposal stand out to clients. So we're dropping the required price of proposals for these jobs that are included in the desk to one connect. And this allows us talent to bid for a chance to boost our proposal to appear on one of the top 3 slots at the top of the client's proposal manager page. So with this option to boost our proposals, we're able to promote ourselves to clients by signaling that we are highly interested for their job. So here we can use our connects to boost our proposals and increase the chances of being among the first that's noticed by the client in their proposal manager page. And when clients see that you are highly interested, they will see there a note in beside your profile that you're highly interested. They'll know these proposals are from talent who paid extra to express their interest by investing extra connects into their proposal. And of course, we released interview connects, I think December of last year. However, around last month, we updated how these are displayed in your connects history page. So before, you will see that it's automatically 10, like you'll see awarded 10. This time around, you will see 2 entries in your connects history. It will show refunded for the number of connects that you used for that job post, and then awarded for the number of connects that you've won because you were interviewed for that job. So the connects will not reflect immediately. Usually it takes about 24 or sometimes 48 to 72 hours. So if you received an interview, for example, this afternoon, expect the connects to be reflected in your account within, let's say, 48 to 72 hours. And then lastly, we just rolled out the our affiliate program. So we are developing an affiliate program, and you can find more information about it through upwork.com/affiliates. Through this affiliate program, you can, I think it's like where you can earn something when you recommend a freelancer to join the platform. So I want you to check that out. Okay, so just a few reminders. I want to ask everyone to please keep your questions related to our topic. Our topic today is more about personal marketing strategies. So if you want to learn more about how you can sell yourself in the marketplace, or how you can write your proposals, or how you can complete your profile, we have a lot of webinars for these topics that you may have questions for. I invite you to visit upwork.com/community/events. We have a ton of past and present webinars there. You can register in any of the webinars that you're interested, so that you can learn how you can maximize the Upwork website for your freelancing business. Also, we don't have the chat option. We only have Q&A. So if ever you have questions that you want to ask during the panel discussion, please don't be shy. I want to encourage everyone to ask questions, because these 2 people I have here now are real experts in the marketing field. So this is the only time that we have with them. So let's make use of it, okay? It's time to meet our panelists. Neal Strauss is a top-rated social media strategist based in Philadelphia, US. Since his first job through the Upwork marketplace 5 years ago, Neal has worked over 3,700 hours with SMBs and enterprise organizations. Neal has been an Upwork ambassador to the US since 2017, while he continues to his hunt for the greatest bagel. Say hi to everyone, Neal.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you.
I hope you had your bagel this morning. I mean, I've heard of people enjoy croissant, and this is the first time that I'm hearing someone like bagel. Next, we have Catalin Modorcea. He has been working in digital marketing as an independent professional for nearly 8 years. He's worked with clients ranging from startups to global enterprises, and is currently focused on marketing project management. Today, he coordinates freelancers from different parts of the world to support enterprise marketing activities. And as an Upwork ambassador, he aims to help independent talent across Europe and Africa to make the most of the Upwork marketplace and continue to grow on their personal journeys. Say hi to everyone, Kita.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet everyone.
So yes, we are now here at the golden moment where we will have our panel discussion. Let me just check on the polls that we have. I'm gonna share. There you go. So our question was, in one word, what comes to your mind when you say personal marketing strategy? And most of the answers are branding, selling, promoting, uniqueness, difficult. I relate to that.
That's good.
Difficult, how you sell your services, talent, people, plans. So these are really interesting words. And I want to ask you guys, Kata and Neil, how do you find personal marketing strategy? What is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, since I've been working in marketing for so long, it's basically an extension of of what I do. And I like that the number one thing that people associate with marketing is branding. I think that's very interesting. I think they're very interconnected in a way, and I think that they're interconnected in the sense that you first have to have a very you have to be able to present yourself very way before doing any kind of marketing can actually work in your favor. It's the same for when you're doing personal marketing as you're marketing any products or services or businesses. If the product has to be good or the business has to be good in order for marketing activities to work.
How about
Yeah,
you, Neil?
definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree with Kata said, especially in terms of branding. The word I actually picked for this was communication. And it's interesting that not as many people picked that word. They picked out standing out or promotion. Whereas when I view marketing or my personal marketing plan, it's just how I speak about myself and it's how I talk about myself to other people. I think it really can be as simple as that. And then, it can be as complicated as having an entire marketing strategy with social media, email, website, and everything else that gets more complicated and scarier down the line. But I think what it boils down to is what Kata said as well, which is just how you talk about what you do to other people.
And um, so your line of work right now is marketing, digital marketing, or SEO, social media marketing for brands. Is this marketing also the same for personal marketing, or is it different?
Yeah. So one of the big, before we started this call, actually, Avery, we were talking about how marketing changes so often. And, one of the things that it's changed to now is a lot of people are focusing on their personal branding or their personal marketing, whether they are at a big company or they're a freelancer. So though I focus mainly on social media and digital marketing for the brands, part of that is helping the brand's employees or the brand's team members talk about what the company does or what they do individually at the company or at the organization, I should say. So one of the reoccurring themes that we're working on right now, or that I'm working on with a lot of my clients, is how an employee talks about what they do at the company, but also how the company can do a better job about talking about what the person does or the individuals do. And so that could be the C-suite of, the CEO or, VP position. But usually it's more of the everyday person that's in any job across the board, and it could be at any management level that they do want to talk about themselves. They want to be able to not only brag about it to their parents or to their family, but they also want to be able to go on social media and say, I had a really great day today. I did X, Y, and Z. And so if we can, or my mentality is if I can help people understand their personal marketing, I can then help them understand the larger marketing goals of the organization, and they can help one another. They don't have to work against each other.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you've noticed actually when it comes to businesses, especially large businesses, we have a tendency of associating a business with its CEO and associating the image of that business with the way that its CEO talks about himself. Like we obviously associate Tesla very much with Elon Musk. We associate Apple very much with Tim Cook and Facebook very much with Mark Zuckerberg. So if Mark Zuckerberg promotes himself or acts in a way that it seems not exactly ethical or not exactly in tune with what people are thinking, then people start to associate Facebook with the same kind of emotions. So, but that, anyway, that comes more to promoting companies and things like that. When it comes to promoting yourself and personal marketing, because I know that I'm sure that for a lot of people, it can seem scary if this isn't what you do for a living. It can seem complicated and difficult and things like that. And what I was discussing with Avery before we started the call is that, you know, one of the things that I've realized about marketing is that although it's really the tools that keep changing, but the principles remain the same. People function the same today as they did even thousands of years ago. You know, our brains don't change very frequently or very much. The only thing that really changes is what are the best tools that we have available to us today to communicate who we are, what we do, and what we're looking for. So I think when it comes to promoting yourself on Upwork, it really pays to just think about these basics. It's about how do you communicate who you are, what you're good at, and what you're looking for to your potential clients. And the other part is the selection part. It's also, you know, who's your target audience? What kinds of clients do you want to attract? That's a really big part of personal marketing that I think freelancers, especially new ones, tend to overlook at first. You really have to think about what types of clients you want to work with, because there's a massive pool of them available. And if you get good at identifying which are the ones that you appreciate the most, you'll also then get better at communicating why you're the right fit for that particular type of client. Because, for instance, you know, if you promote yourself very generally and say, I'll take my example, you know, if I were to say that I do digital marketing, virtually any company on earth basically needs marketing, but I'm not appealing to anybody specific. I'm not appealing to my ideal type of client. What I've come to realize over the years is that I really enjoy working with SaaS companies, software as a service, and with e-commerce companies. So I always try to appeal to e-commerce business and software as a service business, right? So that's why it's really important to really have a clear idea of what type of client you like to work with or want to work with. See what they're looking for, see what types of which of your skills they're in need of, and how you can best apply your skills in the context of working with them. And then marketing is really just as simple as communicating that through the tool that you use. And in this case, the tool is just the Upwork marketplace.
I actually have like two questions that are related to what you just said, what you guys just said right now. And one of which is you said that we have to define our target audience. And I think this is like a step when we want to create our own branding plan or our own marketing strategies. Are there other steps that we need to take when we start making our own branding strategies? And what are these steps, if you don't mind sharing it with us?
Yeah, I mean, I would keep it really at first as simple as possible and add layers as you go, you know? So in order to, because things can quickly start to feel overwhelming as you complicate them. But as a first step, what I would say is just start by going on Upwork, searching for projects, and make a list of the types of projects that you've identified that you like the most, you know? And try to identify what are the commonalities between them. What is the common type of client that you're seeing here? What is the size of their business? You know, what industry do they work in? How is your service going to appeal to them? Just ask yourself these questions and fill in the answers. And then as a next step, try to think, okay, how do I write my description on my profile in a way that it appeals to this particular type of client, you know? And when I talk to them in an interview, what types of information do I need for him? What types of information might he be looking at for me? And this is something that you also get better at with experience as you communicate with more clients, as you submit more proposals and you see which ones work. But it's really good to start practicing this early because, you know, it's really going to help you improve over time.
The one thing I'd add to that, Kata, is that there's a ton of information within job postings. So once you find those 10 job postings that you're really interested in, that you think I can hit these out of the park and do an amazing job with, those are the ones that then look at the very bottom of that job posting where the keywords are. And that's one of those things that when I first started, I went through all the keywords and I started to realize the words I was using with prospective clients, and more importantly, the words I was using in my profile were very different from what my ideal client was using. And so when I was able to carry some of those words over and realize, okay, these are the keywords that I should be using. Instead of talking about social media, maybe I should be talking about LinkedIn and how people use LinkedIn, or Twitter and the individual platforms there. So looking at those keywords there will really help you out with your profile. And then when you're writing out that proposal and you can find within that specific job posting the keywords that prospective client used, that's where the real gold is, because then you can reiterate the verbiage right back at them and make sure that you understand their problem. And they may not even use the words of, I'm looking for a specialist within LinkedIn or something. But in the bottom and the keywords, they're saying LinkedIn. And so if you could bring that up as well and say, you know what, this may be something that you are interested in or that we should discuss as we go along, that will your client will feel a little more comfortable and understand that you really understand what they're going after.
We have a question that I was supposed to ask, but it was also asked by a member of our audience, Jonah Castro. We want to know what are these marketing principles that we can actually apply to our freelancing business?
Neal, did you want to start or?
An angel passed. No one wanted to talk.
Yeah, so it might depend a little bit from industry to industry. So a few things that apply across the board. Number one, in relation to the way that you communicate, it's also always to keep in mind that you're having a discussion with another human being, and that we, first of all, when somebody goes to the Upwork marketplace, what they're going there for is that they have a problem or a gap of capabilities within their business that they're trying to fill, or a problem that they're trying to solve. So the number one thing is to focus on that. I always encourage people to start their proposals by focusing on what's the problem you're solving for a client, and how is this going to positively impact their business? And then follow that up, back it up with your experience, right? Because then in the client's mind, it's number one, they see, okay, this guy, knows what my problem is, and he's trying to fix my specific problem. Now the question that I need to figure out is he the right person for it? And that's what backs up your claims about solving this problem is your experience and things like that. So those are the two small things. And also because, when you're first communicating with clients on Upwork, there is going to be, it's going to be written communication. Some good principles related to copywriting that are very simple to apply, are good to keep in mind. Number one, it really does matter, not to make grammar mistakes, not to make contextual mistakes. So make sure you proofread before you submit something. There's a tool called Grammarly. You can find it at grammarly.com. It's a free tool and Chrome extension that you can install, and then it'll check all of your text before submitting it. So you can see quickly, make sure that you don't have any mistakes. I've been doing copywriting for years and I still use Grammarly very, very much because you make mistakes, it's inevitable, especially when you're writing quite a bit of text. And another one is you want to make sure that it's easy. You're making communication easy, So one thing that I think is a good practice for everybody to say is before you submit a proposal, read it out loud and see if it kind of rolls off your tongue, because when we talk to people, we talk in very simple terms. But then when we write things down, we're much more likely to be complex and write long sentences and things like that. So try to read out loud what you wrote. And that's just a very easy way of making sure that it's easy to read. Because if you're struggling to read it out loud or to make it sound good, or it sounds like it's hard to remember what you started saying at the beginning of the sentence, then that's a sentence that you need to simplify, And as a general rule that I've used for years now is I try not to have a paragraph more than 3 lines of text, because then it becomes harder to read. It looks it's much easier to scan through when it's very simple. So you want to make sure that your text is really easy to scan through, that you're not cluttering a lot of it into a bulk. Even sometimes I write really long proposals because I'm usually looking for long-term clients and ongoing work, and they're usually looking to receive quite a bit of information. So I send them quite a bit of information. And this is another thing that I often get asked is, how long should my proposal be? And my answer to that is, as long as the client basically wants it to be. Some clients ask for a lot of info and you should be detailed. Some clients are just asking like, when can we meet, or just very brief info, and you should be brief in those cases. So when you're writing long text, this really helps to just break it down into simple sentences and short paragraphs so that it's easy to scan through. So, maybe not all of the information will be relevant to the client. Maybe he won't want to read it all, but if you make it easy to scan through, you're much more likely of him finding the little snippets that are really relevant to them and that might convince them, rather than if it's just a big bulk of text, they might not read it at all, because it just sometimes, if it's just a lot of text, it looks tiring just to look at it, and there's more to add to that, but Neal, I'll let you say your opinion too.
Yeah, so Grammarly is definitely my best friend, and I use that on a regular basis. Plus, you can use it as a plugin for Chrome. So this way, as you're typing out your proposal, it'll add the little red line if you spell anything wrong. I think for me, marketing principles really boil down to 4 questions, which are who you are, what you do, who you're talking to, and what's next. If especially when I come to writing proposals, or even just to talking to someone on the street about what I do, I try to keep those in mind. If I can explain myself in a real easy way, in a simple way, if I can communicate what I do to them, and if I really know who I'm trying to talk to as well, that'll help me out, and that'll just help the conversation roll or start and smoothly. The last part of what's next, that question is really up to you. I mean, so Kata, how he talked about how he really writes longer proposals. For me, I try to keep my proposals really short, sweet, and to the point, which is I find kind of funny, since I'm also looking for some of those bigger long-term projects, for multi-year projects, so to speak. But always include a call to action in there. So this way, whoever I'm talking to knows what their next action is. I don't like to leave people as if it was a presentation where I just blurted out a bunch of information and then said, okay, go do whatever is next on your standpoint, and then come back to me when you're ready. Some things I sometimes ask them are, what's your availability for a video call, for the Zoom call? And that goes back to what you were talking about, Avery, with the scheduling integration. But other times I need more information about their project, or I want to learn more about what their goals are, or what success looks like to them. So including that question to them makes it out, because after they're reading through 10, 15, or maybe even more proposals, they don't really know what to do next. How do I then take from these 10 proposals and boil that down to the 3 people I want to interview? Or even worse, the 50 proposals and boil that down to 10 or 15 interviews. And so if they have at least one question of, okay, maybe next I got to schedule an interview, and that may not just be with me, it may be with the 5 other people or the 10 other people, I think that's definitely encouraged for myself, but it gives them a clear answer about what's the next visualization that they need to do, the next step. And then also, when I boil it down like that, that also gives me a playlist of what I'm looking for from my clients as well. And so if we can both communicate well, there's, I think the best marketing principle to live by is that communication is key. If you can communicate about it, then you can work it through, whatever it is. So client troubles that come up, or problems that arise later on, can be squared away by if you have that good communication, and you practice those principles on a regular basis.
So that other some people in our audience, I think, are rising talent freelancers, and a lot of them are new to this and have no idea how to start. Why don't you tell us how you guys started as freelancers and how you were able to evolve your marketing from when you started up to now that you're experienced freelancers, you're both top-rated freelancers, you're both ambassadors, and you're working with big clients. So how did that go for you guys?
For me, it really revolves around food and cookies, to be specific. There's a reoccurring thing. I love bagels, I love cookies, I love food. So I love it all. But for me, when I first started, I was in university and I was looking for the next job. I grew up knowing that you just go working for the next job. You got to find your boss, and you got to work it through yourself. And so I went on a bunch of interviews, and none of them felt right. None of them really felt like something I wanted to do. And I had been freelancing on the side, doing mainly video production. And in addition to video production, I would do some editing and some social media as well. And so when I was talking to a lot of these, prospective employers, all of them would say, "This is, tell us about yourself," and that's it. And when I would ask them a couple of questions, they would answer them, but it was short answers, just to the point, and they'd move on. Nothing felt like I left saying like, I really just want to do this. And so that's when I started freelancing more seriously. I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a year. If I can take a year out of it, and I can come up with a bunch of successful stories for myself, then I'll continue it for as long as I can. And so I built out this system of cookies or success metrics for myself. So there's a couple of really good cookie places nearby my apartment that were very cheap and very inexpensive. And I decided every time I mess up and every time I hit it out of the ballpark, every time I get a big win, I'm going to go buy myself a cookie. And so it sounds silly, but it worked for me. It was that first time I sent my first proposal, I didn't send another one. I actually took a step back. I went around the block and bought myself a cookie. The first time I had my first interview with a client, same thing. And the first time I actually didn't get a job, I did the same thing. I went over. I was very grateful that the prospective client actually told me that they weren't interested, that they were going in a different direction. But similarly, it kind of beat me down a bit, but I still went around the block. I got myself a cookie. And what I would do on those walks is rethink about what I did well and what I could have done better. And so all the way on the way there, it was usually thinking about, okay, yes, I'm just going to go get this cookie, but it was more about what I did really well on that project. What should I think positively of? What of that goal would I walk away with saying, I want to do that again? And then on my way back, on the walk back, it was about a 7-minute walk back, I then thought about what could I do better? And by focusing on the positive, it not only helped me mentally think about what I really want to do and how I want to do it, and that I still am passionate about this, but it gave me practical steps that once I got back, I took out my notebook and I wrote down, okay, let's do X, Y, and Z. Let's change this around. That first project that I didn't get actually worked out really well because it gave me a ton of information about what I can change around. Similarly to what you were saying, cut out first was, I was offering too much. I was saying social media. It's similar to Kata saying, I just want to do digital marketing, but that doesn't really get across the point. And so once I was able to boil that down and find my niche, that's when I really found success out of it. So I've upgraded from cookies to now bagels, but I still kind of take those same principles to heart. And it's every time, even after this call, I'm going to walk around the block or I'm going to make myself a nice breakfast here because it's still morning. But just learning from myself and continually trying to do better. And then from there, it's on the more practical side, I really want to work with companies and organizations that I love. So I'm very proud to say that each of my clients, I really do enjoy working with. I view them as teammates. I view them as colleagues and as people that I can go to not only for to help them out and to provide value to them, but to add advice also. So pre-pandemic, when I was traveling more, I would go out of my way to stop through every single one of my client cities, partially to explore a new place and to see what cookies and bagels they had. But more importantly, just to stop in and see them and connect face to face. And it's why I do most of my business through video calls. It's if I have to do a phone call, I'll do a phone call or a voice call only. But otherwise, I really strive to do video calls because it creates that face-to-face interaction. It's great to see who's on the other side and how they're reacting to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Kata? How did you start your freelancing career?
Yeah, so like Neal, I was in at university, and for me the motivation was essentially that I didn't have the time for a full-time job, so I needed something on the side to begin with, and that's why I wanted to test out freelancing. And what I knew at that stage was that I really wanted a career in marketing, And at that specific time, I thought that SEO sounded good to me. I thought that I would enjoy doing SEO. I didn't know, but what I realized before then, it wasn't Upwork, it was Elance. What I realized very quickly was that I wasn't really hearing back from people on SEO projects because they were all asking for something that I didn't have, which is experience with SEO and a track record to show, success metrics and things like that. So I thought, okay, well, I know that I want to work within marketing. What can I do at this time with what I do know and the skills that I do have in order to that I can then leverage into something that's SEO related. And that led me to social media marketing. I think my first ever project was managing some social media channels for small local stores for a company that's what they were doing. And that really worked for me. I had no experience at the time, but I knew that my English was very good and I could write. I knew you can learn copywriting. It's not something that you have to have a wealth of experience in doing. You can just learn it. So that's basically, that was what led me to think I can probably get a project within this, and that worked out. And then for my existing clients, I started to upsell them and say, I'm already doing this for you. You're happy. I'd really like to try some SEO as well on the side. Benefit to them because they didn't have a big budget for an agency at the time, and because they already knew me, they were obviously far more willing to let me test out SEO than a client who's never met me, and I'd just go and say, hey, I'd like to try SEO, and this has basically become a kind of recurring theme of I've always tried to leverage what I currently have and can do into the next bigger thing that I want to do. When I started doing SEO as after doing it on the side a little bit, I was then able to get SEO clients because I had my first case studies. I had things to leverage into getting clients directly for SEO. I realized that I don't like it. I realized that I don't enjoy SEO. There's a lot of little things that weren't as fun as I thought they would be. And that's perfectly fine. That's one of the great things about being a freelancer, is that you can basically change your mind as often as you want, and there's no harm in trying something and realizing it's not the right thing for you. So then I realized that I really like to apply my creative skills to the kind of marketing that I do. And that led me more towards copywriting and later to, there is this part of me that really likes to work with statistics and to make data-driven decisions. And that's kind of what led me then into marketing automation, which I really enjoyed. And then finally, now I focus mostly on marketing project management, which again relates to, having a statistical means of deciding what's the best approach, but also being able to do more because I'm not the only one working on a client's projects. I'm actually, working with other freelancers. So that was basically the progression for me. And I think the most valuable thing that I've learned over the years is to start with what you can, to use what you have, the skills you have and the experience you have, and to leverage that into the next bigger thing that you're looking for.
Yeah, Kata, I wonder how you your opinion on this, but one of the things I find is start also with the things you're most comfortable with. So if English isn't your first language and you're really not comfortable using it, that's totally okay. But understanding that about yourself is also something good, because if a client's looking for someone that's very comfortable with English and you're not, it may not work as well. It's good to step out of your comfort zone. But for myself, I also tried to expand into languages that I knew a little bit about, and do I would say, yeah, I can try to learn SEO, or I can do a little bit with email marketing. And I realized real quickly that was a bad way to start it. It was better to start with things I knew. I was comfortable with social media, and then expand it slowly as I learned more, and then say, by the way, I am comfortable now with email marketing, or I am now comfortable with doing X, Y, and Z. So how does that relate to you, especially as someone that I don't think English was your first language? Correct me if I'm wrong there.
It
and how that
was
relates to projects you use.
Yeah, it wasn't, but I have a little bit of a, in that sense. I've started learning English when I was 4 years old. I've been learning English in parallel to Romanian my whole life, and my vocabulary in English has become more advanced than my vocabulary in Romanian, to be perfectly honest. because I use it a lot more. So I was very lucky in that sense. I kind of had the advantage of having, and also I grew up with an American friend, we talk all the time and etc. So I kind of had this weird advantage growing up where I'm not from the US, but my English is equivalent to virtually anybody from the US. And that's helped me quite a bit. However, when it relates to other people, if they're not perfectly comfortable with their English, and it's just, even if it's very good but not really at native level, there are a lot of countries, and the funny thing is that I've spent many years working almost exclusively with US based clients, but in recent years I'm now basically working almost entirely with either European or Australian or / New Zealand clients. And what I've noticed in Europe is that people's English here is very good, but it's definitely not perfect, So if you're not perfectly comfortable with English, if it's your second language, then maybe just look for clients in countries where their English is also second language, and they're going to be a lot more or a lot less judgmental of that,
I wanted to ask, so did you guys use, when you were transitioning to fully embrace freelancing, did you guys use tools to be able to market yourself? I think Kata mentioned that you started in Elance. Was it Elance? Or was it Odes? Was it only, did you only use those platforms to sell yourselves as freelancers, or did you use something else?
Yeah, for me, it was just this. I've always been, and this is kind of why I went to Elance and why I think Upwork is so great, because I'm always looking for how to optimize my workload. I don't want to spend hours or weeks or months preparing content for social media and promoting myself constantly and things like that. And Upwork eliminates the need for me to do that, because the clients are already there and I can reach out to them when they actually need work. So it eliminates a lot of need for promotion from my side. What I do apply though is, I think that especially when you want to work with bigger clients, they look at your profile on Upwork. They might even look at at who you are outside of Upwork, So that's why, to me, personal branding really matters. And I try to, present myself very professionally on social media, on LinkedIn, etc., as well as on Upwork. And basically this also kind of ties into my personal projects and what I do outside of work, because people sometimes care about that as well. I've had like I said before, I like working with e-commerce, and I've had my own e-commerce business for about a year or a little bit more. I've learned quite a bit from that. And one of my other projects is I hosted a local TEDx event, which went really well. So I also kind of, to me, personal branding is not just about what you do professionally, but also what you choose to do on your free time as well.
Yeah, and to add on to that for myself, I really stuck to primarily Upwork once I really fell in love with the platform. I did start out with like a couple of different systems and different things, one of which was I was going to build out this massive email marketing platform for myself to get more work. And I realized it was just a lot of work.
It's a lot of
The
work.
second
And
thing I realized,
yeah,
it's
you already
a
have an
tremendous
option,
amount of work. It's really hard, and like,
Oh.
it's just a lot of work. But the other thing like that is a little known secret is I really don't like marketing myself. I actually don't like that word of personal marketing or personal branding. Like, it scares me. I'm afraid to write that blog because I'm like, oh, well, is this going to be the perfect view of what I want to present to a client or what I want to present to others? Is this really the best way? And sometimes I get too into the weeds that I forget about the bigger picture, which is it's not about posting that blog. It's about posting something that's relevant and consistent to who I am. And so that's where Upwork made it easy for me, because I was able to market myself in an easier way or a simpler way and in a less pressure-filled way. And then, but to Kata's point about social media and other areas, I still use it. I'm still, I kind of started out with, these are my Facebook and my Instagram are my personal profiles. Those are the ones I really just want to stick to friends and family. And like anything related to clients, like I don't tie into that. Anything related to even using my profile to engage with those clients, I don't use that at all, because I really want to keep those separate. But then my LinkedIn, my Twitter are areas that, I felt, okay, if I am going to use this in the future, even for now, I want to keep it professional. I want to keep it consistent with my brand or my strategy. But I also, if you look on LinkedIn, I haven't posted in probably a year or two. And that's okay. It's for my personal strategy. I kind of came up with a way of less is more. And especially with Upwork, I'm able to do that successfully. But even when I engage with people, I keep it friendly and I keep it to the voice and tone that I want to use. And then I use that consistently. So whether I talk to you over a video call, over a webinar like this, if I meet you through Upwork or if I meet you through social media, you'll get the same Neal that you're getting anywhere else. And so, which is, consistency is one of those things I tell brands are one of the most important things you can do. But it really boils down to people too, the way you talk to everyone. If everyone gets the same experience and they all love that experience, they'll talk about that experience and they'll remember that experience later on.
And Kita, for you, I think you have a blog, am I right? Or you have a personal website where you update about your activities?
Yes, I try to. I do that very rarely. I maybe write a blog article once every few months, but it's the same for the same reason that Neal said. It's not a tool for me to necessarily gain visibility. Because again, that would turn into a lot of work very quickly. And that's the other thing. It would turn into a lot of work and not add a lot more value because I already have this other option, it's like choose the one that's more efficient. But sometimes I like to write on my blog, and I have it set up for occasionally because there's just some things that I care about, that I think about, regardless of whether I write them down or not. Sometimes I write them down anyway, and this is why I set up a blog. I figured I might as well just have a place to post them, when I want to. So it's just my go-to place for when I want to share something. But to be honest, I would love to write more on it. There's a lot of topics that I like to write more about. I also just don't really have the time. I mean, I always prioritize my clients, and there's only so much time that you have in the day. And to me, it's also very important to do on my personal time things that are completely unrelated to my work, to disconnect from it. For instance, I really like to draw and 3D modeling. So I spend a lot of my free time outside of work doing that, or traveling with my girlfriend and things like that on the weekends.
I'm really interested in the, what do you call this? Neal mentioned something about keeping his social media profiles private to himself, for his personal use, and then for the other stuff for his clients or his business. But I want to know what your take is on this. You know how you're on Facebook and then you go onto these groups, and then some of the people, they get into arguments with other people, and then until it comes to a point when these, like for example, person A gets crucified online, and then Twitter starts lambasting this person so and so. What are your thoughts about like your activities online? If you want to keep your social media private, but then other people are gonna lambast you in another social media channel, how should we start separating our personal lives from our business, from our freelancing business?
So I actually do this a lot with leadership of companies where, especially in the US, there's politics is a very touchy subject. And where, especially for leadership of a company, if they say one thing versus the other, if they support one candidate versus the other, it can get very tricky very quickly, especially for the company. And like theoretically, in a wonderful world, these are separate entities, but they really do play in one to the other. So what I advise everyone is stay true to yourself. If this is something you really feel passionate about, and this is a part of yourself, then you can talk about that online. For me personally, I stay clear away from politics. And I really just focus on supporting people and hearing stories and learning about businesses. Every now and then you hear a business story that, the business went under or didn't do something that was so right. And if I was to think 3 years back, maybe at one point I did support them or I did say something online. It's okay. It's okay to learn more. It's okay to change. It's okay to be a human being and to evolve your thinking and the way you're processing things. as long as you stay civil and stay nice. If you are ever in one of those group chats and someone is getting into the weeds or starting to like take in different direction, usually I'd tell people to take it into a private conversation, have a video call, because when you're on a Facebook thread or in a group chat that's going way beyond the bounds of what you originally started talking about, you're not really accomplishing that much. So if you can have a one-on-one conversation, you may be able to figure out your differences, and either figure out how you're really closer to people than you are further away from them. But more importantly, that you can explain yourself and have a thoughtful conversation without needing to worry about what happens next. And then the other policy to remember is your grandmother policy, which is if you're afraid of your grandmother seeing this, then it's probably not right for social media. I used to do classes with high school kids and parents as well. And I'd say something like, if there's always someone in the room that say, if you're college or university, if you don't want them to see the picture that you're posting on Facebook, don't do it. Instead, I would say, who knows about that? College and universities, they have thousands of people coming in. They're probably not going to look at your individual social media profile, but your mom is definitely going to look at it. Your dad, your siblings, your cousins, your grandmother, they're going to stalk everything out there. So if you're not comfortable with what you're posting, or if you're not sure, hold on posting it. Rethink it for a few minutes, maybe even run it by your mom or your grandmother or someone to see like how it resonates with them. But yeah, honestly, it goes back to just staying true to yourself. Like if that is your true self, then like people may not like it, and it may be carried somewhere else. But at the end of the day, if that's the self you want to promote, that is Neal Strauss, who goes out and eats cookies all the time and loves having a good bagel, then like that's the thing you should scream from the rooftops. So or say politely from the rooftops.
Yeah. For me, likewise, as a rule, I always try to stay away from controversial and divisive discussions. Regardless of, I think ultimately, my opinions on threads on Facebook are not going to make a difference in the world. So I like to keep my opinions and my leanings to discuss with my friends and people who I actually know personally, and to also have constructive disagreements with people I know who see things differently from me. That's completely fine, but it's just the forum. It matters, and Facebook to me is not the right forum for divisive or controversial topics to discuss them. I think those are better to be had, as Neal said, in more private circumstances, and in more civil ways. And I guess there's one thing. I do have a very hard time sometimes when it's something that I'm passionate about. I have a hard time not saying anything. And and I like and this is the other thing, because with people online, there is this tendency to, if they are critical of you or of something that you said or do, they have this tendency to basically, if you're responding to it, you're kind of feeding a fire, and it just goes on forever. Like they can just keep finding arguments, no matter how ridiculous it is, for the next 5 days. And what I like is there's Guy Kawasaki. I think he's hugely popular evangelist for Canva, and worked at Apple and many other things. You might have heard of him. And I really like his social media rule of thumb, which is what he says is he will allow himself to respond to somebody once. That's it, one time. Somebody says something in the comment section of his post that he really, really doesn't agree with, he'll respond one time. And if that person goes on and writes 5 other counter arguments or something like that, that's it. Leave it there, because it's never going to end. Nobody has time for it. So I really like that rule, and I've applied it. And yeah, it's the right middle ground for me, where I'm not staying completely silent, but I'm also not wasting all of my energy and my time and going into a ridiculous discussion with somebody I don't even know.
Yeah. And I think my greatest takeaway from that discussion is WWGD, what would your grandmother say or do? We're almost at the 1 hour mark, and I hope it's okay if we do some Q&As. We have really wonderful questions. Well, you guys were discussing some answers to my questions. I was reading through some of the questions here, and there are a lot of good questions. Some were already answered by you, so I have removed them here. But let me just look at some of the questions I found. Oh, this one question came in earlier for Kata. It's from Mike Templar, and I think you answered this earlier too, and I think also Neal touched up on this a little. But He says, so you work with a you work with SaaS companies. Does your method change from client to client, or do you just have mild tweaks?
Yeah, it's kind of completely different from client to client, to be honest. It's the same principles at the base, but what we actually end up doing and how we end up applying them differs completely based on the client, you know? So one of the things, for instance, that's always a priority for me is to make sure that we have clarity in our data, understand user engagement, because, and I like to draw this parallel. It's one of the blog posts I wrote actually, between, you know, what's the difference between online businesses and local businesses. And with local businesses, you get so much instant feedback just by being there, by seeing the expression on people's faces. It's the same with our webinars. When we were doing in-person events, I would get so much instant feedback just by looking at people's faces. All of this body language and everything they say and do around you is there's such a wealth of knowledge there that doesn't exist at all online. So that's why online, especially for SaaS companies, it's really important to understand how people engage with your product. You know, not on a personal level, so, you know, GDPR compliance and everything like that, but on a statistical level, how are people engaging with your product? Are there features that they appreciate more than others? Are there features that they're more willing to pay for than others? Are there, you know, how can you basically tailor the experience so that they're getting, you know, the most from your service and they're perfectly happy with it? And then how do you know what it is that they love about your service well enough to promote it to a new audience and get a new audience on board? So the way that you actually then do this is always different. It depends on the client, on what their resources and capabilities are in terms of analytics, and then it depends on what their resources and capabilities are in terms of how to attract new clients. Like with some clients, if they already have an existing presence, they get already a lot of traffic, then it might be a low hanging fruit, an easy thing for them to improve their SEO and get them more search traffic, you know? But if it's a client who, with a new business, who are trying to test new services and products, SEO can take a really long time to start to build and to get results from. So that's when, if you want to get fast results, it makes more sense to run advertising campaigns, email campaigns, etc., things like that. You know, and this also is why I ultimately now really like to do marketing project management, because of course I can't do all of those things by myself, and I can't just switch between them all the time. So just I like to put myself now in a position where I'm trying to be analytical, figure out what's the best thing for a client, then identify the best person who can solve that problem for them within their budget and manage that.
How about you, Neal? Do you work with a specific, I don't, I think I forget if you mentioned your specific market that you cater to, but do you also try to tweak, for example, your proposals when you send out proposals to clients?
Yeah, so I primarily work with B2B organizations. So any business selling another product or service to another business. But within there, I take like a broad approach to that. So I do work with a couple of nonprofits. Part of them are passion projects that, you know, I like to volunteer with at least one nonprofit a quarter type of thing. But the principles still stay the same. So it's exactly what Kata said, which was, you know, there's one nonprofit that I've been working with for a few years now, and I use these same principles with them as I do with a company that sells helicopters to hospitals to be that are outfitted as ambulances. And they're very different, but the thing that stays the same are they're using social media to communicate with people. They're using marketing to create conversations. And so out of those, we want to create conversations with people. So as Kata said, that personal feedback that you're missing often from e-commerce businesses, oftentimes nonprofits have when they're fundraising or they're having their big galas. Or this aviation company, for example, they have when they're at a trade show. But the other 75 or 90% of the year, they don't have that. And we're just communicating through social media. So creating a good following of people that are interested in what they're doing, interested in their mission, and are eager to have that conversation or eager to have that back and forth. That's what I focus on. How that's actually getting done, that's where it comes in differently. So that's where, you know, everyone has their own unique social media strategy or their own unique email strategy to go along with those principles. And those strategies change over time. So the nonprofit that I've worked with is now almost 3 years that we've worked together. And that's changed not only within the first year a few times as we learned a lot more, but over 3 years, we've done a lot of changes. There's been a pandemic, there's been other things that have happened that have forced us to change. But there's also just our audience changes, the way we interact with people changes. As a human grows old and they change the way their interests are or what their interests are and how they interact with people, so should organizations. And so that's where I try to adjust my strategies and keep the foundation true or the principles true while changing the way that we all actually do them.
So there's an interesting question here. It's related to writing your proposals too, but it talks about the volume of the freelancers on Upwork. And the question from Angelica asks is, considering the volume of freelancers on Upwork, what are the techniques you do to stand out with every job hiring you are applying for? And there's another question from another freelancer who says, should we use proposals or should we use the project catalog feature as a marketing tool for us? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so earlier today, I had a webinar on the project catalog. So that's really fresh in my mind. And I got this question earlier as well, which was, should I use the project catalog or should I go with fixed price / hourly contracts? Both. It's not an either or game. It's the project catalog is an extension of what you can do on Upwork. You can gain visibility and you can solve more types of projects this way and appeal to a larger variety of clients, because some clients will just want something standard, will just want something very specific where they know exactly what they're buying and they're going to get it fast, and that's where the project catalog comes in handy. Some projects are going to be way more complex. They're going to be ongoing, and it wouldn't make sense to sell those kinds of services or to have those kinds of project catalog engagements with those types of clients. So the project catalog is really there to expand on your ability to be visual to a wider range of clients and have the option to sell your services in more ways. So I think they work best together. And a quick example there, because it's a recurring one, that if the project catalog, it will especially make sense to people in logo design and graphic design and things like that. But what about everybody else? And for everybody else, a great opportunity with it is consulting hours. Somebody recommended this to me. I had never thought of doing this kind of thing, of just basically setting up a project for consulting. But it's a great way to get to know potential clients, and I tested it out. I made a project for that and I got my first order, and it kind of feels good to, usually I would have those first engagements with clients for free. They wouldn't pay for it. And now I'm being paid for my time, which is great to have this discussion. And then this can also progress into a bigger ongoing thing. So I think they work best together.
But Neal, what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, I mean, Kata hit it on the head of that. That's exactly the way I personally view the project catalog. It's an extension of what I can do and how I can offer my services. So similarly, I really strive for, and my ideal project is something that's multi-year, or that I'm creating a long-term relationship with clients. And so there's a lot of people that have come to me over the years asking for a short-term thing, and I didn't have a way to really build that out. So this kind of was an extension. It gave me a different avenue to do that. With that being said, though, standing out in general is changes on a regular basis. It's the not only the platform are there changes and updates on a regular basis, but more importantly, the other freelancers that are out there change. The way people are talking about what they're doing changes. And so I try to set myself like quarterly review periods of when I'll take like either a vacation or like a step away from what I'm doing. And I really just think about what I want to do. And then I'll go back to my computer and go back to Upwork to do the research. So I'll search through other freelancers and agencies' profiles to see how they're presenting themselves, especially in my category. The thing I love to do is not only searching my name, but searching the title that I use. And of course, so I'm based in Philadelphia in the US, so I'll start with the East Coast and I'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'll search throughout just the US, I'll search through Europe, I'll search through Asia, see who pops up and how they're presenting themselves. And then that gives me a few ideas about how I can do that differently, or how I'm differentiated from them and what my unique selling position really is. And then at the end of the day, you know, I also really focus on which proposals or which jobs I'm sending things to. So if I see a job already has 50 plus proposals, I usually steer away from that because I'm not going to stand out. I'm going to get kind of lost in the mix there. And so I really focus my time on things that I can stand out on. And if I can't stand out on them, I try to learn from them to figure out how I can stand out for the next one.
And we have this question from Anne Maria Amon or Amon. I'm sorry if I botched your last name. And she said, what personal marketing pitfalls, if any, should we need to be aware of or should we avoid?
Yes. Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
Thanks. It is okay to mess up. The pitfall that I think is most relevant is that not everything will work, and that is really good. If something doesn't work, that means you're learning something that you can then use to learn to do better. So oftentimes what I'll tell to my clients are, you know, when I'm having that first call is, we will mess up, we will make mistakes, but more importantly, things that we try or strategies that I put in place will fall flat. And that is really good actually, because when it does, that means that this avenue doesn't work. So now you should take a left turn or take a right turn and go this way instead. And that kind of keeps you true to focus on what is working and what's providing value. So in practical senses of, you know, your social media post or that blog you write may get 0 hits the first couple of times, or you may throw something up on LinkedIn and it gets 1 million likes and a lot of comments and it did really well. And then the next one you did fell flat. That's okay. Sometimes that happens. There's 1,000,003 things that come into it. Part of it is the learning process of seeing those pitfalls happen. And seeing what evolves from there. You know, it's for Upwork, it's you want to strive to have a really good reputation and you want to strive to have really good, successfully completed projects. But every now and then you may get a bad review or you may get a 4-star or 3-star review. That's okay to have that in there. That shows that you're dynamic. It shows that you're
You're
not a
human.
perfect human.
You know?
Yeah, you're a human. You're not
Not a
perfect.
robot.
Exactly. So, Kat, I'm interested what else you would add to that or change about that.
No, I fully agree. I think just in the context of social media, one thing that I would add that is, you know, very much in line with what you said as well, is that we kind of have built this association in our minds, sadly, on a general level of equating likes or engagement with success, you know, and that's really not necessarily true, you know, because, and this is why people are more and more these days, I think, prone to writing controversial things and saying outrageous things, because that's what gets a lot of likes and a lot of engagement. And we kind of associate that with success. But, you know, I don't think it really is that way necessarily. I think that just if our scope should always be to try to have a positive influence with what we do. And to me, I'd rather have, you know, or post less or post more boring things and not have a lot of likes. But the people who read my articles or read my posts are actually inspired in a positive way, rather than say something really controversial that gets a lot of attention, but it really, you know, it has a negative influence on people as well, you know.
So, I was asking earlier, and I was actually saying to everyone, and also the reason why I chose this topic is because I don't like marketing, and in one of it's just not. I think it's not for me. And in one of Kata's presentations before, he mentioned something like I don't like marketing, but I need it. So are we essentially saying that if we are to thrive in this freelancing business, should we embrace marketing? And is this something that we should really do?
I think that we really need to redefine it, because we associate marketing with the wrong things. We associate marketing with writing on social media or doing X or Y or Z, but that's not really what we should define it as. As Neal said earlier, I think that a really simple and good definition for marketing is communication. It's how do we communicate who we are, what we're good at, what we're looking for, and what we can provide. you know. And when we think of it in terms of just communication, then there's really not much to really be scared of or dislike about it. It's just the practice of getting better at understanding who you are speaking to and putting yourself in their shoes, and getting better at communicating the value that you can add to them, so that you can, you know, have better collaborations and lasting relationships.
Yeah, I would say if you don't like marketing, stop marketing. You know, forget the term, throw it out there.
Yeah.
Focus on just who you are, and what you do. You know, it's if you talk about your introduction, Avery said that you're a mom of one, and you have a couple of fur babies as well. So if you go back to that, if you can explain what you do to your kid, or to any kid for that matter, you know, find a friend's kid that's, you know, 5 years old, and if you can explain what you do to them and they can understand it, you hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
If you can explain what you do to your grandmother, because my grandmother, my parents barely understand the concept of freelancing, and they finally come around to the idea that I'm not just looking, this is not just my in-between before I get an employment type of thing. You know, if I can explain it to them, that's marketing, and that's marketing enough. The other thing I would say is if you like puzzles or if you like games, turn it into a game or a puzzle. The thing I view about marketing is that it really is the strategy part is that you're coming up with the picture on the box. And then the marketing part or the execution of it is that's when you're then taking each of the puzzle pieces and putting them together. So if you do like puzzles, think about it as a game. Find some rewards for yourself along the way. You can take my idea of eating cookies if you want. You know, I'll even send you some good ideas of shops in Philadelphia for cookies. But otherwise, you know, focus on what can interest you out of it. You know, if you make it with there's rewards along the way for yourself, or if you make it into, oh, well, that did really well. Now, how do I change this around? How do I do worse? Or how can I do super, super well if I change just this one little thing? Or why don't I try adjusting these words here and seeing how that changes my whole persona? If that's what excites you, then go with that. You know, it's what Kata said, which is redefining what we're saying marketing is super true. So just find what that meaning is for yourself.
Do you have anything to share to that, Kata?
No, I think that's yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a good way to thinking about it. You know, for a very long time, people associate marketing with some negative things, but no, there's bad marketing and there's good marketing, you know. And you also have a lot of room as a freelancer to simplify what it should mean in the context of how you use it, you know, and not try to do everything, because you know, Neal and I, we work in marketing, and like we said, we don't do these things. We don't promote ourselves on a million channels and post constantly and things like that. We mostly use Upwork. So it's just a question of figuring out the most efficient way to identify and communicate with the kinds of clients you want to work with.
And I guess to the audience, before we started this event, I was talking to Neal and Kata, and I was telling them that, yeah, I don't know how to embrace marketing, and I'm having a hard time trying to grasp it. I feel like I'm always grasping at straws when I try to read about how to brand myself and stuff. And then they said, this will be a challenge. This event will be a challenge, that if they can convert me to embrace marketing, then they would have been successful at this event. And I can say, truly, you did convert me, guys, especially when you said, Neal, that if you can explain to a 5-year-old what you're doing, that's marketing for you, and you've been successful at telling people who you are. Because when my son was 6 years old, I was explaining to him what I was doing, and at that time I was still actively moderating the Upwork community, and he kept asking me, why are you always on your screen, and you're like always you're always busy and stuff? And I go, because my work is to help people solve their problems. My work is to help people identify how they can improve themselves in Upwork, in the website that where we are selling our business. And then during, I think it was an event in school, and another student asked him, what does your mom do? And then my son said, oh, my mom helps other people solve their problems. And I think that hit the nail on the head. And I think that experience has been with me for a long time, but I didn't realize that it was actually marketing until you guys said it, until you guys said that staying true to yourself is actually part of your branding, and then just knowing who you are and how you communicate yourself with clients is actually part of this whole marketing we have for ourselves. So really, really eye-opening. I'm liking this session. I do hope I can still extend it, but we've gone over time. And thank you for everyone who asked their questions. I think they were really good questions. We had a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we can't answer them now. But if you want to continue the discussion, don't hesitate to visit the Upwork community. That's community.upwork.com. Ask your questions there. We have moderators who can answer your questions. We also have users, talents, and clients who will be happy to engage with you in your discussion. And also, as ambassadors, Kata and Neal have their own events. So if you want, check out our events page. That's upwork.com/community/events. Just look them up. They have webinars. They also do these expert talks, and sometimes I watch their recording too because I learn a lot from it. So make sure you visit our events page. Thank you to Kata and Neal for being with us today. And before we go, I hope everyone received the form for the feedback. It will help us to improve on our events. Yeah, that would be all for now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kata. Thank you, Neal.
Thank you, Avery. Thank you, Neil.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.